Imagine this: an empire that lasted for over 1,000 years. A civilization that rose from the ashes of the great Roman Empire, built on the ruins of a city that once symbolized the might of the ancient world. Yet, despite surviving invasions, rebellions, and the challenges of time itself, it was all erased in a single moment, wiped from the pages of history. Welcome to the story of the Byzantine Empire. An empire that stood the test of time for more than 1,000 years and then, in the blink of an eye, fell into obscurity. This is a story of strength, innovation, and tragedy. A story that will take you on a journey through the rise, reign, and fall of an empire that ruled the world, until it didn't. It all starts in the year 330 AD, when the Roman Empire, the mightiest empire the world had ever seen, faced the dawn of a new era. The Emperor Constantine I made a decision that would forever change the course of history. He moved the heart of the empire from Rome to a new city, a city he would name after himself, Constantinople. This was the beginning of the Byzantine Empire. But what did it mean for the Roman Empire to be split in two? Rome, the eternal city, was in its decline. Barbarian invasions, economic collapse, and internal chaos were eating away at its power. The Western Roman Empire was crumbling under the weight of these challenges, but in the East, a new future was emerging. Constantine's Constantinople, sitting at the crossroads of Europe and Asia, was poised to become the new center of power, the new Rome. Constantine's choice of Constantinople was not just a political move but a brilliant strategic vision. Positioned between two seas, the Bosporus Strait became an essential passageway for trade and military control. It was more than just a city. It was a fortress. The city would be surrounded by immense walls, ensuring that it would become nearly invulnerable to attacks. It was a place where East met West, where wealth, culture, and military might would converge. Constantine envisioned a city that would serve as both the heart of the Eastern Roman Empire and a new Rome, one that would outlive the old. Yet, Constantine's vision went beyond just defense and politics. Constantinople was to be a beacon of Christian faith and power. Constantine had already become the first Roman emperor to convert to Christianity, and he understood that his new city would become the spiritual heart of the Roman Empire, the seat of the Eastern Orthodox Church, and a symbol of Christian dominance. Under Constantine, Christianity transformed from a persecuted faith into the state religion of the empire. In 313 AD, Constantine issued the Edict of Milan, legalizing Christianity and setting the stage for its rise. The First Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, also convened by Constantine, sought to unite Christian beliefs and establish doctrinal orthodoxy. The empire's transformation wasn't just religious but deeply political. Christianity would be the foundation upon which the Byzantine Empire was built, and its influence would be felt in every corner of Byzantine life, from laws to culture and even military strategy. As the centuries passed, the Eastern Orthodox Church grew in influence. While the Western Roman Empire splintered, the Byzantine Empire, under the guidance of the Church, held firm. Religion would guide the empire's emperors, influence its foreign policy, and even dictate its interactions with the wider world. Despite Constantine's triumph, the Byzantine Empire wasn't immune to the challenges that faced the Roman Empire. The new empire faced immediate military threats from the Sassanid Persians in the east and barbarian tribes from the north. The Huns and other barbarian groups were constantly pushing against the empire's borders. Despite its strategic location and fortified walls, the Byzantine Empire was constantly forced to defend its territory. One of the biggest threats came from the Visigoths, who sacked Rome in 410 AD, followed by the Vandals in 455 AD. While the Western Roman Empire crumbled under these invasions, the Eastern Empire remained strong, though not without its own challenges. The Sassanids were a constant military threat, as was the Arab expansion in the 7th century, which would later take much of the Byzantines' holdings in the Middle East. The early barbarian invasions and internal unrest would mark a constant theme throughout Byzantine history. Yet, the empire's ability to adapt and survive these crises would define its long reign. The Byzantine Empire gradually began to carve out an identity distinct from the Roman Empire. At first, the Byzantine Empire was seen as the eastern continuation of the Roman Empire, but over time, the empire began to form its own unique culture. One of the most significant changes was the shift from Latin to Greek as the official language of the empire by the 7th century. This was symbolic of a wider cultural shift, as Byzantine culture began to absorb more Eastern influences while still holding on to Roman traditions. The The Byzantine Empire was no longer simply a Roman entity but a fusion of Roman law, Greek philosophy, and Eastern Christianity. The rise of Byzantine iconography, the creation of magnificent churches, and the development of Byzantine mosaics were all part of this cultural evolution. The people of the empire began to see themselves not as Romans, but as Byzantines, with a distinct identity and worldview. The survival of the Byzantine Empire was not just due to its military strength, but also its diplomatic prowess. One of the main reasons the Byzantines were able to hold their ground for so long was their military innovation. They developed the theme system, a land-grant military strategy, which allowed the empire to quickly raise armies and maintain a defensive perimeter. The Byzantine army was highly disciplined, and their tactics were as sophisticated as they were effective. But it wasn't just about fighting. The Byzantines were also masters of diplomacy. They used marriage alliances, bribes, and careful diplomacy to manage their relationships with neighboring powers. The empire's ability to play its enemies off each other, while remaining strong at home, allowed it to survive periods of immense pressure. Byzantine military strategy was also advanced in naval warfare. The Greek fire, a weapon capable of burning on water, was a game-changer in naval combat and helped the Byzantines maintain control of the Mediterranean. While Justinian I is often remembered for his military conquests, he also left an enduring legacy in law, architecture, and governance. Justinian sought to restore the glory of the Roman Empire, but his reign was also marked by a deep commitment to reforming Byzantine society. One of his most important accomplishments was the creation of the Justinian Code, a collection of laws that would influence legal systems for centuries. This code was a clear statement of the Byzantine Empire's commitment to order and justice. It became the foundation for European legal systems, even impacting modern laws today. Architecturally, Justinian's greatest achievement was the construction of the Hagia Sophia, a building that would become the largest cathedral in the world for nearly 1,000 years. The Hagia Sophia was not just an architectural wonder. It was a symbol of the fusion of Roman engineering, Greek aesthetics, and Christian faith. It stood as a beacon of Byzantine greatness and was a testament to the empire's cultural and religious unity. But Justinian's reign wasn't all smooth sailing. In 532 AD, the Nika riots erupted in Constantinople, a violent uprising that nearly toppled his rule. However, Justinian's ability to suppress the revolt and restore order demonstrated his resilience and leadership, securing his place in history as one of the most iconic emperors. Even as Justinian expanded the empire through military conquests, the costs of these campaigns were significant. The empire's resources were stretched thin, and despite initial victories, Justinian's ambitions ultimately left the empire weakened. Nevertheless, his reign laid the foundation for the Byzantine Empire's cultural and legal legacy, which would endure for centuries. In the next part, we will delve deeper into the Byzantine Empire's defense against new threats, the legendary emperors who led the empire through dark times, and how the empire's glory began to fade, setting the stage for its eventual fall. Stay tuned as we explore how the empire fought, bled, and ultimately survived. But at what cost? We will learn about the empire's great military battles, the reign of the powerful emperors, and how the Byzantine spirit held strong in the face of disaster, even as it began to crumble under the weight of the ages. This was just the beginning of their incredible story. In the wake of Justinian's reign, the Byzantine Empire entered a period that could only be described as its golden age. The empire wasn't just surviving, it was flourishing. The city of Constantinople, with its towering walls, bustling markets, and magnificent churches, stood as a testament to the enduring power of the Byzantine state. But as we all know, the brightest empires don't always last. For every moment of triumph, the Byzantines faced an equally dangerous challenge, one that would test the very fabric of their empire. As the 7th century dawned, the Byzantine Empire's enemies began to grow bolder, and it was soon clear that the world around the empire was changing at a rapid pace. A new and terrifying force emerged from the deserts of Arabia, forever altering the balance of power in the Mediterranean world. Let's take a deep dive into how the Byzantine Empire fought to maintain its dominance, how its emperors kept the empire intact, and how their military genius and diplomatic skills were tested like never before. By the 7th century, the Byzantine Empire was still reeling from the internal struggles that followed Justinian's death. The empire faced financial crises, religious disputes, and territorial losses. But nothing would be as devastating as the rise of Islam. In the span of just a few decades, a new Arab empire began to form, sweeping across the Middle East and North Africa. Led by the Prophet Muhammad's successors, the Arab Caliphate surged through former Byzantine territories. In 636 AD, the Battle of Yarmouk marked a turning point. It was here that the Byzantine army faced its worst defeat in centuries. The Arab forces decisively crushed the Byzantines, and in one fell swoop, the Byzantine Empire lost control of Syria, Palestine, and Egypt, critical provinces that had once been the lifeblood of the empire. The Byzantines no longer controlled the great cities of Jerusalem, Antioch, or Alexandria, and this was a huge blow to their pride and power. But despite these catastrophic losses, the Byzantine Empire didn't just roll over and disappear. Emperor Heraclius, who reigned from 610 to 641 AD, rose to the challenge. A brilliant strategist, he reorganized the empire's military and implemented the theme system, a military structure that helped the Byzantines defend their territory more effectively. Heraclius even launched a counteroffensive against the Persian Empire and was victorious, reclaiming the true cross, the sacred relic, from the Persians. This was a symbolic victory that helped rally the Byzantine people, and Heraclius became a celebrated hero for his efforts. But even in this time of recovery, the shadow of Islam continued to loom over the empire. The Byzantines were locked in a struggle for survival, fending off Arab invasions while also trying to preserve their borders. The loss of Egypt, in particular, devastated the Byzantine economy. Egypt had been one of the most prosperous provinces in the empire, providing grain and other resources. Losing this key territory made it even harder for the Byzantines to hold on to their power in the region. If there's one thing that defined the Byzantine Empire, it was its ability to adapt. The empire's military system, from its early days, was based on innovation and flexibility. And nowhere was this more evident than in the Byzantine navy. Byzantine naval power was unmatched, and it played a key role in keeping Constantinople safe. One of the most secretive and devastating weapons in the Byzantine arsenal was Greek fire. A powerful incendiary substance, Greek fire could burn even on water, and it was used with devastating effect against invading fleets. The Byzantines unleashed it during naval battles, and it became a symbol of their strength and ingenuity. Constantinople's walls were another key to the empire's military resilience. The Theodosian walls, a series of massive fortifications built in the 5th century, protected the city from countless attacks. Even when the city was surrounded by sea and land, these walls held strong, and the Byzantines were able to use their military prowess to fend off invaders time and again. But while the Byzantine military was winning battles against foreign enemies, it was also fighting a bitter war at home. In the 8th century, the empire was plunged into a period of religious conflict known as iconoclasm. The controversy started when Emperor Leo III banned the veneration of religious icons, claiming that their use violated Christian teachings. This sparked intense theological debates and led to fierce opposition from those who believed that icons were an essential part of Christian worship. The iconoclasts, those who wanted to destroy the icons, faced opposition from the iconophiles, those who wanted to preserve the icons as symbols of faith. This division created political instability, and the church was torn apart. The Eastern Orthodox Church had always played a vital role in Byzantine society, but the iconoclast controversy nearly fractured the empire's religious identity. The issue would not be fully resolved until the 9th century, when the restoration of the icons was decreed by Empress Theodora. By the 9th century, the Byzantines had stabilized after the turbulence of the iconoclast wars, and a new dynasty rose to power, the Macedonian dynasty. This period is often considered a golden age for the Byzantine Empire, as the empire experienced economic growth, cultural renaissance, and military victories. Under Emperor Basil II, who ruled from 976 to 1025 AD, the Byzantine Empire reached new heights of power and prosperity. Basil II, often called the Bulgar Slayer, was one of the most brilliant military strategists the empire ever had. His campaigns against the Bulgarians were legendary, and he expanded Byzantine territories significantly. Basil's victory at the Battle of Kleidion in 1014 effectively crushed the Bulgarian Empire, and the Byzantines gained control over much of the Balkans. This was a time of great wealth, with the Byzantine Empire acting as a cultural and economic bridge between East and West. The Byzantine court, with its lavish palaces and sophisticated rituals, became a center of culture, attracting scholars, artists, and diplomats from all over the known world. The empire was also a major player in the Silk Road trade, bringing wealth and influence to Constantinople. While the Byzantine military was powerful, it was the empire's diplomatic expertise that often kept it on top. The Byzantines were masters of playing the political game. Emperors used diplomacy, marriage alliances, and manipulation to maintain peace with their neighbors and secure the empire's interests. The Byzantines would often marry their daughters into powerful families in Europe, the Middle East, and even Russia, creating a web of alliances that would help protect the empire. But diplomacy also came with intrigue and betrayal. The Byzantine court was a place of constant scheming, with ambitious generals, ministers, and even family members constantly jockeying for power. These court intrigues often led to backstabbing and assassinations, and it was not unusual for an emperor to face challenges from within his own ranks. While the Byzantine Empire was still powerful in the 11th century, the seeds of its eventual decline had already been sown. Overextension, internal corruption, and external threats were beginning to take their toll. The empire's once mighty military began to weaken, and the internal divisions became more pronounced. One of the most significant events was the Great Schism of 1054, when the Eastern Orthodox Church and the Roman Catholic Church officially split. This schism created a rift between the two branches of Christianity, and while it didn't immediately weaken the empire, it highlighted the growing division between the East and West. The Seljuk Turks also began making inroads into Byzantine territory in the 11th century, and their victory at the Battle of Manzikert in 1071 would prove to be a devastating blow. The Seljuk Turks took control of much of Anatolia, and the Byzantines were left struggling to hold on to their heartland. Stay tuned for Part 3, where we will explore the fall of the Byzantine Empire, the Crusades, and how the city of Constantinople, once the pride of the world, fell to the Ottoman Turks in 1453. The Golden Age would come to an end, but the legacy of the Byzantine Empire would live on forever in the art, culture, and history of Europe and the Middle East. The Byzantine Empire, once a beacon of power, would fade away, but its story, its triumphs, and its lessons would remain etched in history. The story of the Byzantine Empire is one of incredible resilience, but as all great empires face, even the mightiest must eventually fall. For over 1,000 years, Byzantium stood as a beacon of power, culture, and religion, fending off invasions, maintaining a unique identity, and preserving the knowledge of the ancient world. But by the 13th century, cracks began to show, and the decline set in. As the Byzantine Empire weakened, it found itself surrounded by growing external forces, internal strife, and the brutal consequences of the Crusades. But it was the rise of the Ottoman Turks that would prove to be the final and most devastating threat to the empire. Let's explore how the Byzantine Empire faced the challenge of the Crusades, dealt with internal struggles post-1204, and ultimately met its tragic end with the fall of Constantinople. In the late 11th century, Pope Urban II launched the First Crusade, 1096, calling Christians to reclaim Jerusalem from Muslim control. While the Crusades were intended to unite Christians, the Byzantines initially saw the Crusaders as potential allies. Emperor Alexios I Komnenos of the Byzantine Empire, facing threats from the Seljuk Turks, sought Western help and asked for military assistance. At first, the Crusaders answered the call, capturing key territories in the Levant and pushing back the Turks. However, the Crusaders' focus soon shifted away from the Eastern Empire, and after their victory, they set their eyes on Constantinople. The Crusaders were not interested in aiding the Byzantines further, but instead established their own power base in the region. This tension eventually reached its peak in 1204 when the Fourth Crusade turned against Constantinople itself. Instead of continuing to Jerusalem, the Crusaders, motivated by Venetian merchants and their own interests, sacked Constantinople in one of the most brutal acts of betrayal in history. The Fourth Crusade's sack of Constantinople was catastrophic. Churches were plundered, treasures were stolen, and the city was left in ruins. The Latin Empire was briefly established, but the Byzantine Empire had effectively been shattered. The empire was divided, its heart destroyed, and the Byzantines would never regain their former strength. This was the first major blow to the empire's survival. Following the Fourth Crusade, the Byzantine Empire splintered. The Latin Empire, 1204 to 1261, took control of Constantinople, while the Byzantine nobles fled to various parts of the empire, creating smaller states. The Empire of Nicaea became the most prominent Byzantine state, and its rulers would eventually recapture Constantinople in 1261. However, by this point, the Byzantine Empire had been irrevocably weakened, and the capital city of Constantinople, though regained, was a shadow of its former self. The Byzantines tried to rebuild, but their empire was fragmented and unstable. With weakened leadership, fragmented territory, and weakened military power, the Byzantines struggled to maintain cohesion. Meanwhile, the Ottoman Turks had been growing stronger and were beginning to encroach on Byzantine territory, especially in Anatolia and the Balkans. The empire, now reduced to a fraction of its former glory, faced a constant internal battle for survival. It was a race against time, with the Byzantines attempting to rebuild their empire, but they were continuously held back by political instability, economic troubles, and an ever-present external threat, the Ottomans. As the Byzantine Empire was distracted by internal strife, the Ottoman Empire was emerging as a formidable power. By the late 14th century, the Ottomans, led by Sultan Mehmed I and later Sultan Mehmed II, had steadily expanded across the Balkans and into Anatolia. The Ottomans were pressing the Byzantines from the east, and the Byzantine Empire, once a towering power, was now just a shadow of its former self. The Ottomans' military innovations, including the use of large cannons, and their strategic mastery of siege warfare would eventually doom the Byzantines. The Byzantines had no choice but to accept their decline, as the Ottomans advanced towards Constantinople. By the 15th century, the Ottoman Turks had already surrounded Constantinople and were knocking on its gates. The city's walls, which had held for centuries against countless invaders, now faced an enemy with the firepower and determination to breach them. But despite the growing threat, the Byzantine Emperor, Constantine XI Palaiologos, held on to hope. He reached out for help from the West, but by then, the Western powers were embroiled in their own conflicts and had little interest in aiding the Byzantines. It was the spring of 1453 when the final siege began. Sultan Mehmed II, having gathered one of the most powerful armies of his time, laid siege to the city of Constantinople. Constantinople's walls, though impressive and thick, could not withstand the massive artillery brought by the Ottomans. The massive cannons that Mehmed employed were a new and terrifying weapon, capable of pounding the ancient walls into submission. For weeks, the Byzantines fought valiantly, and Emperor Constantine XI led his soldiers in a final stand. As the Ottomans drew closer, the city's defenders were hopelessly outnumbered, and they had no reinforcements. The hope that had sustained the city for so long finally began to fade. On May 29, 1453, after nearly 2 months of siege, the Ottomans breached the city's walls, and the final hours of Constantinople arrived. The Byzantine defenders made one last desperate charge, but it was futile. Emperor Constantine XI was killed in the battle, and the city was overwhelmed. Constantinople fell. The Ottomans now controlled the city, renaming it Istanbul. The fall of the Byzantine Empire was complete, and the Roman Empire, which had lasted for over 1,000 years, had finally ended. This marked not only the end of an empire but also the end of an era. The fall of Constantinople is seen by many as the final chapter of the medieval world. With the fall of Constantinople, the Ottoman Empire would go on to dominate much of the eastern Mediterranean, the Balkans, and parts of the Middle East for centuries. The Byzantine legacy, however, did not disappear with the empire. The Eastern Orthodox Church continued to thrive, and the cultural and intellectual achievements of the Byzantines, preserved for centuries, would be passed on to the world. The Byzantine Empire had left its mark in ways few realized at the time. The art, architecture, laws, and religious practices of the empire influenced not only the Ottomans but also Europe, Russia, and the world. The Byzantine preservation of ancient Greek texts would later contribute to the Renaissance and the intellectual revival in the West. While Constantinople's fall marked the end of the Byzantine Empire, its spiritual, cultural, and legal legacies endured. The Eastern Orthodox Church would continue to shape the identity of many Eastern European nations, and Byzantine art and philosophy would live on, influencing generations of scholars, artists, and theologians. In the next part, we will explore the incredible legacy of the Byzantine Empire, how its cultural contributions continue to resonate in the modern world, and how the empire's influences help shape the world even after its fall. The story of Byzantium may have ended in 1453, but the impact of its 1,000-year reign has shaped our world in ways we still feel today. While the Byzantine Empire may have fallen in 1453, its legacy did not vanish with its last emperor's death. The impact of this extraordinary civilization continues to echo throughout history, influencing modern art, law, religion, and even the very structure of our societies today. In this chapter, we will explore the lasting imprint of the Byzantine Empire, which, despite its fall, helped lay the foundation for the modern world in ways that we often don't realize. Byzantine art is one of the most enduring contributions of the empire. Though the Byzantine style evolved over the centuries, it always remained focused on religious themes, emphasizing iconography, mosaics, and frescoes. Icons, those sacred images of Christ, the Virgin Mary, saints, and angels, became a central part of Byzantine religious life. These icons were not just paintings. They were seen as conduits for divine grace and were revered with great devotion. The use of gold leaf and vivid colors in Byzantine art helped create an atmosphere of heavenly beauty, designed to inspire awe and devotion in viewers. One of the most iconic examples of Byzantine art is the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul. While initially a Christian cathedral, it was later converted into a mosque after the fall of Constantinople. The mosaics inside the Hagia Sophia, depicting Christ, the Virgin Mary, and other religious figures, are considered some of the finest examples of Byzantine artistry. The dome of the Hagia Sophia, with its vast and intricate mosaics, remains one of the greatest architectural and artistic achievements of the Byzantine Empire. Byzantine art influenced many subsequent artistic movements in Eastern Europe and Russia, especially in the Eastern Orthodox Church. The Russian Orthodox Church, for instance, adopted the Byzantine style of religious icons, which are still central to Russian spirituality and culture today. The Byzantine tradition of iconography also influenced Western art, particularly during the Renaissance, when many Italian artists were inspired by Byzantine religious imagery. One of the most profound contributions of the Byzantine Empire was its legal system, particularly the Justinian Code, or Corpus Juris Civilis. This monumental work, created by Emperor Justinian I in the 6th century, compiled centuries of Roman law into a single, organized system. The Justinian Code was groundbreaking because it established a comprehensive system of law that emphasized principles like justice, equality, and protection of private property. It provided the basis for laws concerning contracts, inheritance, marriage, and civil rights. The code became the foundation for legal systems in Europe and influenced legal thinking throughout the world. The Justinian Code survived the fall of Constantinople and played a key role in the development of modern European law. In fact, many aspects of the civil law tradition in countries like France, Germany, Italy, and Spain are directly descended from the Byzantine legal system. The influence of the Justinian Code also extended to Latin America and parts of Asia, where civil law systems reflect Byzantine legal principles to this day. Without the Byzantine Empire's preservation of Roman law and its own additions to it, modern legal systems would not be what they are today. The idea of codified laws, written down and accessible to all, remains one of the Byzantine Empire's most important contributions to world civilization. Religion was the backbone of the Byzantine Empire, and the influence of the Eastern Orthodox Church continues to resonate today. The Byzantine Empire helped spread Christianity in Eastern Europe, particularly in Russia, Greece, the Balkans, and parts of the Middle East. The Eastern Orthodox Church became one of the two major branches of Christianity, the other being Roman Catholicism. The Great Schism of 1054, which divided Christianity into Eastern and Western branches, was largely a result of differences in theology, liturgy, and church authority. The Eastern Orthodox Church emphasized the authority of the Patriarch of Constantinople, while the Catholic Church centered its power in the Pope. Despite this split, both branches shared core beliefs in the Christian faith. The Eastern Orthodox Church, particularly through the Byzantine Empire, preserved Christian liturgy and doctrines that remain central to Orthodox Christian practice today. Byzantine monks and theologians played a crucial role in preserving ancient Christian texts and passing them on to later generations. The Byzantine missionaries Cyril and Methodius, for example, are credited with creating the Cyrillic alphabet, which became the basis for writing in Russian, Ukrainian, and Bulgarian. Today, the Eastern Orthodox Church has millions of followers worldwide, especially in Eastern Europe and Russia, and its religious practices are heavily influenced by Byzantine traditions. The iconostasis, the screen separating the altar from the congregation in Orthodox churches, and the use of icons in worship are direct legacies of the Byzantine Empire's religious practices. One of the greatest gifts of the Byzantine Empire to the modern world was its preservation of ancient Greek and Roman knowledge. As the Western Roman Empire fell into decline, the Byzantines kept the flame of classical learning alive, preserving thousands of texts from ancient Greece and Rome. Byzantine scholars were meticulous in copying ancient manuscripts, and the Byzantine libraries were full of philosophical, mathematical, and scientific works. These texts were passed on to the Islamic world, which would preserve and expand upon them. Later, when Byzantine scholars fled Constantinople after its fall in 1453, many brought these invaluable texts with them to Western Europe. Their work helped fuel the Renaissance, a period of renewed interest in the classical world. The Byzantines' role as keepers of knowledge was crucial in the intellectual development of Europe. Many of the ancient texts that would later influence the Renaissance came directly from the Byzantine Empire. These manuscripts included works by Plato, Aristotle, and Homer, along with treatises on medicine, astronomy, and mathematics. Without the preservation of ancient knowledge by the Byzantines, the Renaissance may not have been possible. The Byzantine Empire's intellectual contributions bridged the gap between the ancient world and the modern age, allowing Europe to rediscover and build upon classical ideas. Though the Byzantine Empire ceased to exist after 1453, the influence of its governance and political systems remained profound. The Byzantine bureaucracy was highly organized and sophisticated, and it provided a model for later European states, particularly in how to maintain a centralized government. The Byzantine administrative system was a precursor to modern civil service systems, where officials were appointed based on merit rather than heredity. This focus on an organized, bureaucratic government laid the groundwork for modern systems of governance in Europe and beyond. The Byzantine Empire's political legacy also helped shape imperial structures that influenced later empires, particularly the Russian Empire. Russian Tsars, for example, considered themselves the direct heirs to the Byzantine emperors and referred to Moscow as the Third Rome. Though the Byzantine Empire fell in 1453, its influence lived on in many aspects of the modern world. From its artistic contributions to the Eastern Orthodox Church, its legal innovations to its preservation of ancient knowledge, the Byzantine Empire shaped the world in profound and lasting ways. Byzantium was much more than an empire. It was a bridge between the ancient and modern worlds, a guardian of knowledge, and a cultural beacon that continues to light the way for us today. In the Eastern Orthodox Church, in our legal systems, in art, and even in our language, the influence of the Byzantine Empire is still felt. The empire's story may have ended, but its legacy is everywhere around us, influencing the world from the time of its fall to the present day. Thank you for joining us in this incredible journey through the rise, glory, and eventual decline of the Byzantine Empire. Their story, their legacy, is something that will continue to inspire and shape the world for generations to come. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history, don't forget to hit that like button, drop a comment below with your thoughts, and subscribe for more fascinating historical journeys. Your support helps us bring you more content just like this. See you in the next video. And remember, history is far from over.